Hello, this is William Michael of the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, and I'd like to take some time to talk about the news that I've been posting recently about printed books becoming available in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. I'd like to explain what my thoughts are concerning these books and make some suggestions for how Catholic homeschool parents can use them. Because our program is very different from other programs, and that affects how books are thought about and used by our students. One of my criticisms of modern schooling is that because of the K-12 grade level arrangement, they create an artificial need for dozens and dozens and dozens of books and study materials of all different kinds for the children. And they divide these kids up into all these small groups, and every single group needs a different set of books. And it's wonderful for booksellers, but it's unnecessary, and in my opinion, pretty stupid to do that. So when you think of the volume of books that are needed to study what boils down to be a very basic study program in most modern schools, if you actually look at the content of what's studied and compare that to the quantity of materials that are needed, it's pretty ridiculous. But parents get used to that, and so when they look at our print book offerings, I'm thinking that parents are going to start calculating what would be necessary based on the normal expectations of buying books for every subject, for every student, and so on. And I just want to help parents think about this a little differently. In the academy, we explain that all of these grade levels and things like that modern schools practice, that's all artificial and unnecessary. And really, it has nothing to do with homeschooling. Because in homeschooling, our kids are not in groups with peers their same age. So it doesn't make any sense to have our kids identifying themselves as third graders and fifth graders and seventh graders when that really doesn't even make any sense in homeschooling. They're not such. So when we look at the course recommendations for different age students or different grade levels, just because we try to communicate these things in terms that homeschool parents are familiar with, like age and grade level, if you look at the course recommendations, you'll see that there's a lot of crossover. There's a lot of overlap between these grade levels. If a parent has a second grader and a third grader, and you look at our recommended courses, you'll see that they're almost the same exact courses. The kids are almost studying the same exact things. And so a new batch of books, a new box of books isn't needed for every single kid in every single grade level. A lot of the stuff crosses over. So a single book could be used by 2 children or even more. So when you first look at the book offerings, just realize that it doesn't need to work the way that modern school programs work with books at every different grade level for every different student. It's much simpler than that. Of course, you could buy copies of each book for each child, but that'd be a matter of convenience. That wouldn't be anything of necessity. So I just like to make parents aware of that difference and ask them to think about it as they consider the use of printed books. Now, what I'm doing with this printing of books is simply making available all of the study materials that our students need in a form that's accessible offline. So it's my desire to make it possible for students to complete academy studies without always being tethered to their computer or the internet. That's the purpose of making books available. So I'd like for children to engage with the study center system because it's valuable for many reasons. Keeps all their records, their grades, provides assessments, organizes all the study material for them, and so on. So I'd like them to use the study center, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that anyone needs to sit staring at the screen 12 hours a day in order to do that. I'd like to give the kids more flexibility. I'd like to make studies more comfortable. And there's also some practical concerns that I have with the program. And I don't mean to sound alarmist, because I'm not an alarmist, but sometimes I have this thought in the back of my head about what would we do if, let's say storms go through and the power is knocked out for some time, or the internet connection is lost. There's all sorts of disruptions that are possible, and if everything is online, then any kind of disruption to any of those systems, or a computer breaks or whatever, the kids can't access any studies. And it's stupid to put all your eggs in one basket like that, and I'd like to allow for parents not to do that. There's also some serious concern about all of the political disturbance right now, talks about war and all these kinds of things. We really don't know over the next few years what sort of a situation we'll be living in, but we'll need to make sure that we can continue to educate our children regardless of those situations. And just as a precautionary measure, I think it's a good idea for us to have a fallback option, as it were, so we could, in the event that internet access became unreliable or entirely unavailable, we could still continue with our children's education without much trouble. So that's another concern. And then thirdly, as parents, our children, it's not good for our children to be online all the time. Obviously, if we supervise them, everything can be safe, but that's part of the problem, is that realistically, we just can't always supervise them. And so when we can't supervise the kids, we've got two options. It's either time to turn off the computer and just not study for a while because mom can't keep an eye on you, or the other option would be get off the computer and study from your books because mom can't supervise you for a while on the computer. So again, for just managing the children day by day, when homeschool parents want the kids to study and keep working, but they can't keep their eyes on them while they're using the internet, I think it would be good to have the option for kids to be able to put the computers away, pull out their books, and keep working. So again, it's another option that I think makes homeschooling a little more flexible and effective, morally speaking, because we don't have this trouble of kids being left unsupervised online because their parents simply want them to study. So I think it's good for that too. So there's lots of moral and practical reasons in my head for making these books available. And I think that if you've been in homeschooling for a while, and if you've been in the academy for a while, and you know these sort of practical difficulties that come up with homeschooling, I think you'll understand how having these books available, even if you just had some of the books available, how that can help to sort of improve the consistency and the real life practicality of homeschooling when we just can't keep our eyes on the kids all the time. So that's what I'm thinking there. And then there are other kids who just morally, because of their own weaknesses, they just can't be put on a computer and be expected to study. And it doesn't matter whether they're supervised or not. They just can't handle the temptation that comes with, you know, Willy Wonka's chocolate factory just a click away. It's for some kids, they just can't handle it. And so for parents, it's good to know that one child who does have that self-control can be allowed to enjoy all the benefits of the online study program, and another child who can't control himself in that way can still pursue quality studies in the same program, talking about the same lessons and the same content, just studying them in a different format. So I think that's also a good option to have, just for parents to be able to say, you know what, Tommy, you need to work from a book, and be able to do that. I'd also like to make the program more flexible in terms of how the students do work. It's funny, but in this age of artificial intelligence that's developing, a problem that's emerging is that students can use these artificial intelligence apps like ChatGPT to generate essays and assignments, answer comprehension questions, and so on. So cheating has now become an entirely different monster, with it being almost impossible to discern anymore if a student's actually doing the work, following the instructions, or is just pulling answers from an artificial intelligence platform. And so what some schools are actually doing, as crazy as this sounds, some schools are actually requiring students to do work by hand, writing, to assure that they're not cheating. My son David, who's just getting started in college right now, he had a chemistry assignment the other day, and he came into my office saying, "Hey Dad, can I print something out in here?" And I'm thinking, what in the world do you need to print? Because almost everything I have 3 kids in college right now, almost everything they do is online. So I'm thinking, I can't even think about when the last time I heard a request to print something was. What do you need to print? And he showed me a chemistry assignment, and it requires the students to print out the questions and then write all of the answers by hand, because it's concerned with the kids cheating on the assignment. So they're actually reverting to handwritten assignments to at least make cheating one step more difficult. And I find that really interesting, because it's going to show us what really is significant about handwriting. It really is human and personal, and it's going to become more important as we get into this artificial intelligence age. So when I think about the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, I say to myself, I personally like to write by hand. I personally spend a lot of time writing in notebooks or writing on my tablet. Even if it's digital, it's still handwriting. And I know that many students would probably like to get away from the computer, take a break from typing, and be able to write. There's something pleasant about doing work by hand, taking notes by hand, doing assignments by hand, and so on. And I'd like for students to be able to do that. So in addition to just preparing books, I'd also like to make it more possible, more convenient for students to do work and complete assignments offline in notebooks, on notebook paper, and easily submit them. Submit them in a convenient way so that they don't have to be online for long periods of time. They can simply email a scanned or photographed assignment, and it just be that simple. So in addition to the printed books, I'm also going to be working to make it more convenient for students to work offline, complete assignments by hand, and submit them for grading, and all their records and everything would be entered into the system, and it would be kept in the system just as if they had submitted it online, but they won't need to do that. So these are the kinds of things I'm thinking about as I prepare these books for print. We've already got a bunch of books already prepared and uploaded with the printer. If you'd like to sort of follow our progress, all of this stuff will be available on our website eventually, but I'm arranging for it to be printed on demand by Lulu Press, which is an on-demand printing company. And if you go to their website at lulu.com, Lulu.com, and go to their bookstore where they sell all of the works that they print, you can just search for CLAA and it'll bring up the books that I've already prepared and posted for printing. So you can take a look at what's available, and if you keep checking in every couple days or once a week, you'll continue to see more and more available. But you can go directly to the printer's site at lulu.com and just search for CLAA, and it'll show you all of those books. And you'll see they all have the same cover. It's the white cover with the CLAA logo on the front and a black band across the top. So if you see that color scheme, see that cover on the books, you'll know that those are the books that I'm talking about. So that's what we're working on. That's some of the thinking behind these things and where this is headed. And again, there's just a lot of uncertainty that I feel right now in our society, and I think it's good for us to know that if any wackiness happens, or if disrupting the internet becomes or if the internet is weaponized, if we get into some kind of military conflict, and one of the ways that nations fight each other is by disrupting their utilities, we're still going to need to educate our kids, and so we have something to fall back on and keep that all moving forward steadily. So a lot of practical stuff, some pedagogical stuff involved in this. I just think we're at a point now in the Academy's development where it's time, where we are actually in a place where I can say, yeah, you can put this stuff in print because we're ready to move forward. So again, if you'd like to keep an eye on it, just go to lulu.com and search for CLAA and see what's already available, and check in, and you'll see that continue to update. But that's the thinking with the books. Again, I think we can do this very affordably because I'm not looking to make a profit off book sales. I'm content to be paid just through enrollment, tuition in the Academy. That's really the only money that I want to collect from any parents using our program. And so I intend to sell these books at cost, which is going to make them very cheap. The initial prices that I put on books, just so you know this, the initial prices, I have to come up with a price when I publish the book. For some of these books, I'm just pulling a number out of thin air and sticking it on there to get started. But over time, as I see what the actual costs are for the books to be printed, I mean, I know what the cost of the printing is, but when I see what it actually costs for the process to get the books to our families, I'll cut any profit off those costs and make sure that parents can get those books for nothing but the cost of the printing and the shipping. So if you see prices on those books now, realize that those prices are temporary, and as soon as I see how the actual process works from beginning to end, as we're actually moving these books and I'm seeing what parents are paying and what's coming in, I'll continue to adjust those prices and keep them just so that they cover the cost of printing and shipping, because I don't want bookmaking to be a business. It's really stupid to try to skim money off of things like book printing when it's really taking no work from us to do these things. You do work one time to prepare a book, upload it to a printing business, and they take it from there. I don't understand why the original bookmakers need to make a profit off of every single book that sells. To me, that really doesn't make any sense. I don't think that's the way for a teacher to make his money, to try to skim money off every single book that's sold. So the book prices should be very cheap, and we'll just continue to develop the books. We're going to start, for some classes, we're just going to republish the old books. So it's going to be the old book just in a CLAA cover. For a lot of the courses, that's what we're going to do. Those books are in the public domain, so we can simply republish them and get a printed copy available. Long term, our desire would be to retype and format those books and create fresh copies that are updated, that are maybe formatted a little more nicely and so on. But to get started, we're just going to make the old books available as reprints. And then in phase 2, we'll start to make new editions available and so on. But this is another reason why we can get these books to students cheaply, because there's really not a lot of work involved in getting these study materials in print. So I'd like to keep it as cheap as possible so that parents aren't burdened by these costs for things that really shouldn't be expensive. So anyway, I think we can do it affordably, and I think this will radically improve not just the quality of studies in the academy, but I think the comfort of studies in the academy by being able to get away from the computer, have a little more freedom, have different modes by which to study. I think that'll really help the kids and make studies more enjoyable. So that's what's going on. That's what is being thought behind the scenes in terms of the publishing of books. And we'll continue, like I said, to get into written assignments and written assessments over time to make offline study more and more convenient for families. But we should have all of this ready to go this summer. I mean, it's only March 1st, and we're moving through this actually very easily and quickly. So I think that by this summer, for sure, I mean, God willing, of course, but as far as I can see, I think that we should be ready to go in print with just about every course in the program this summer. So if you're interested in that as a parent, if you'd like that option for your kids, I'm pretty confident that I can tell you that it's going to be available, and you can go ahead and start making plans and preparing for that. If you have any questions about the books, how things can be managed, how things can be used, and so on, just get in touch and we'll talk about some practical things, or I'll post some additional updates and get into those kinds of questions. But I just wanted to assure parents that the printed materials are definitely going to be available. It's just a matter of when at this point, because it just takes time for us to get each book prepared for printing, and then once it's prepared, that's it, we're done. So definitely by summer, but probably sooner, because things are going pretty smoothly. So I think that'll be received as good news by most families. I know my wife's excited about having books for the kids. So I think that's going to be a good thing all around. So again, if you have any questions, just get in touch. I'm happy to talk practical details, and I think we'll be able to help you out. God bless.